I've been on the bench more than 40 years. I've heard every excuse and every truth. Most cases don't change the world, but some cases change one small world. A home, a child, a person's belief that fairness still exists. This happened on Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, Providence Municipal Court housing session. The courtroom clock above my bench read 9:18 a.m. when my clerk called Whitlock Properties versus Elise Navarro. Docket EV 260203-118. The landlord's side stood up fast. They looked ready. Attorney Gerald Pike, bar number 22198, wore a crisp navy suit and a silk tie that looked expensive. He had a leather briefcase with a metal lock and a Mont Blanc pen he kept turning in his fingers like a toy. Next to him stood the property manager, Roman Vale. He was 29. He had that polished look like he practiced in a mirror. Cream Gucci blazer, black Balenciaga shirt, LV belt buckle. On his wrist, a Rolex Daytona. On his phone, a bright orange Hermes case. He didn't even try to hide it. He held it like a badge. And through the courthouse window, I saw a yellow Lamborghini parked at the curb, low and loud even while it sat still. Roman looked around my courtroom like he was visiting a place for regular people, like the chairs were too cheap, like the air smelled wrong. Then Elise Navarro stepped forward alone. Elise was 41, a public school teacher. She wore a plain dark coat with a broken zipper held by a safety pin. Her hair was pulled back in a simple tie. She carried a canvas tote bag stuffed with papers. Her hands shook when she set the bag down, but she stood straight. She looked like someone who had learned how to stay strong even when she was tired. I said, "Good morning, Ms. Navarro." She said, "Good morning, Your Honor," and her voice sounded small in a big room. Attorney Pike spoke like he was reading a grocery list. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward non-payment matter. The tenant is in arrears 3 months. Total rent due is $4,960. Late fees and administrative charges bring the balance to $5,215. We request judgment for possession and issuance of a writ of execution." That phrase, writ of execution, is a cold thing. People hear it and picture a constable, a truck, a mattress on the sidewalk. I looked at Elise. "Ms. Navarro, are you behind on rent?" She nodded. "Yes, sir, I'm behind. I'm not denying it." Roman Vale made a sound, a small laugh, not loud but sharp, the kind of laugh that says, "This is entertainment." I looked at him. "Mr. Vale, you will speak only when I ask you." He held up his hands. "Of course, Judge." But he kept smiling. I turned back to Elise. "Tell me what happened. Why did you fall behind?" She swallowed. "My husband died." The room changed. Even people waiting for their own cases stopped moving for a second. I said, "I'm sorry." "When?" "July 18th, 2025, she said. 9 months ago. I asked, what was his name? "Elijah Navarro," she said. "Staff Sergeant, Army, 13 years. Roman rolled his eyes like he was bored. Elise kept going anyway. "He worked for the water department in the day, and he drove deliveries at night, second job. He said it was just until our son got better." I asked, "Your son is sick?" She nodded. "Mateo, 8, asthma." I said, "Tell me about the accident." Her eyes went wet, but she forced the words out. "It was 10:47 p.m., Route 6. He was almost home. The police report said the other driver hit him from behind at about 84 miles per hour. They said there were no skid marks." No skid marks. That means no brake. That means no chance. I felt my throat tighten. I've seen war injuries in my courtroom. I've seen drunk driving. I've seen people hurt each other for nothing. But a working man killed coming home from a second job is a special kind of unfair. Attorney Pike cleared his throat. "Your Honor, we sympathize, but the issue is rent." I said, "In my courtroom, the issue is always people." Roman leaned in, voice full of confidence. "Judge, with respect, we can't run a building on sympathy." Elise flinched. I asked Elise, "How long have you lived at that address?" 6 years, she said. I looked at the file. 1187 Cranston Avenue, Unit 3B. I knew it. Old brick building. Narrow stairs, drafty windows. I asked, "Has the rent always been $1,020?" Elise shook her head. "No, sir. It was 150. Whitlock bought the building in November and raised it. They called it market rate. Roman smiled wider. It is market rate. I asked him, do you live in that building? He laughed. No. Where do you live? I asked. He shrugged like it didn't matter. Federal Hill, rooftop, new place, nice view. Elise stared at the floor, not jealous, just tired. I asked Elise, have you applied for help, rental assistance, survivor benefits? She nodded fast. Yes. Rental assistance application, RIHAP 5522104. VA survivor benefits case, VASB 88341. They told me there's a backlog. I said, do you have proof? She dug in her tote bag. Papers spilled out, a hospital bill, a school letter, a folded drawing and crayon, a stick figure family holding hands. The father figure was shaded in faintly like a ghost. Elise picked it up and her face crumpled. I'm sorry, I'm a mess. I said, no, you're a mother holding her life together. Roman scoffed. This is turning into story hour. I felt something hard settle in me, not anger like shouting, anger like a decision. I asked Elise, how much can you pay today? She opened her wallet with shaking fingers. $240, she said. Roman laughed out loud. $240? That doesn't even cover the late fees. I said, Mr. Vale, one more outburst and you will be removed. He leaned back, still smirking. Attorney Pike slid another sheet forward. Your Honor, there are also administrative fees, posting fee, after-hours processing fee. I frowned. After-hours processing? Pike said, notices were posted outside business hours. Elise's voice tightened. They taped the notice to my door at 2:23 a.m. I looked up. 2:23 in the morning? She nodded. My son saw it when he left for school. He asked if we were going to be homeless. He cried in the kitchen. Roman waved a hand. Notices go up when they go up, I said. At 2:23 a.m., you wake a family with tape and threats. Roman leaned forward. Judge, if she doesn't want notices, she should pay. I could hear the gallery breathing. People don't need law degrees to hear cruelty. I asked Elise, did you ever try to make partial payments before? Yes, she said. On March 3rd, 6:40 p.m., I went to the office with cash. I told them I could pay $300 that week and $400 the next. I said, and? Elise looked straight at Roman. He said no partials. He said if I can't keep up, get out. Roman nodded proudly. Policy. I said, policy is made by people. People can change it. Then I saw something in the file that made my eyes narrow. A maintenance log note. Heat interruption, Unit 3B, March 5th. Outside, temp 28 degrees. I asked Elise, did your heat go out? Her eyes filled. Yes, 12 hours. My son slept in his jacket. Roman shrugged. Old buildings. Stuff breaks. I said, things don't just break right after threats. Attorney Pike jumped in. Your Honor, there is no evidence of retaliation. I said, not yet. Right then, a man stood up in the back row like he couldn't sit anymore. He wore a gray work shirt with a name patch that said, Calvin. He held his cap in his hands like a kid in school. My bailiff, Officer Daniel Reyes, badge 417, leaned to me and whispered, Judge, that's Calvin Dre. Maintenance at that building. I nodded. Bring him forward. Calvin walked up, nervous. Your Honor. I said, Mr. Dre, do you work for Whitlock Properties? Yes, sir, I asked. Do you post notices late at night? He glanced at Roman, then at the floor. Yes. Who told you to? I asked. Calvin swallowed. Mr. Vale. Roman snapped up. What are you doing? I held up my hand. Mr. Vale, sit. Calvin continued, voice shaky but steady. He told us to do it after midnight. He said if we do it late, tenants don't rip it down before we take a photo for the file. He said, do it when they're asleep. It hits harder. Elise pressed a hand to her mouth. Hearing it out loud made it real. I asked Calvin, did Ms. Navarro try to pay? Yes, he said. Twice. She was polite. She cried but still said please. Roman muttered, crying doesn't pay rent. I looked at him. It proves she still has a heart. I asked Calvin, did you delay heat repairs for Unit 3B on March 5th? Calvin's face tightened. I got a note that said delay until morning. It wasn't in our system. It was typed. It had Mr. Vale's initials. Roman stood loud now. This is insane. He's lying. Calvin shook his head. I'm not lying. I'm tired. I'm tired of pushing good people out. That line hit the whole room, because everyone has seen good people pushed around. Now I'm going to challenge you. If you believe decent people should not be treated like dirt, I dare you to stay with me through the next part without feeling your blood boil, because Roman decided to show his true face right there in open court. Roman leaned toward my bench, full of swagger. Judge, let's stop the crying. Give us the writ. We renovate the unit. New tenant moves in. That's the cycle. I said renovate, so that's what this is. He smiled. Improvement. I asked, improvement for who? For people who can afford it, he said, like that was the whole point of life. Elise whispered, I just need time until the VA comes through. Roman laughed. The VA? Good luck. Maybe the dead soldier story works on Facebook, but not on me. Elise flinched like he slapped her. I felt my voice go quiet. Mr. Vale, you will not speak about her husband like that in my courtroom. Roman tilted his head. Why? Because you feel sorry for her? I said, because it's wrong. He smirked. Wrong doesn't matter. Money matters. Then he looked right at me and decided to insult me by class like money makes a man. He said, no offense, Judge, but you don't get it. You're an old guy. You probably rode the bus your whole life. You're mad because you never made it. The gallery gasped, one shared breath. I sat still. I thought of my father, a working man who taught me respect. I thought of all the people who ride buses because they work honest jobs. I thought of Elise buying school supplies with her own money. I said, Mr. Vale, I made it to something you can't buy. He laughed. What's that? I leaned forward. Respect. And then the twist arrived fast, like a door swinging open. A young woman in the gallery stood up. Your Honor, I have evidence. My bailiff moved, but I lifted my hand. Who are you? Jade Collins, she said. Student teacher at Ms. Navarro's school. I nodded. Evidence of what? Jade held up her phone with both hands. Roman Vale posted a video last night, TikTok and Instagram. He mocked Ms. Navarro. He mocked the court. Roman snapped, fake. Jade said, not fake. I screen recorded it at 1:14 a.m. because I knew it was about her. Officer Reyes took the phone and brought it to me. I watched. Roman was leaning on a yellow Lamborghini. He had a champagne bottle in his hand. He pointed at the sign that said 1187 Cranston Avenue. He laughed into the camera. He said, tomorrow I'm bouncing a broke teacher. Watch her cry. Watch the judge try to play hero. Evictions are my cardio. Then he said, the court is a joke. The judge is probably some bus-riding old man who hates winners. He ended with a toast. I set the phone down slowly. Roman tried to grin again, but it didn't land. It's content, marketing, people like drama. I said, you used a widow's pain for likes. He shrugged. Welcome to the real world. Elise looked like her knees might give out. He filmed my building? Jade nodded, and he tagged the location. Elise whispered, my son could have seen that. I looked at Roman. You didn't just threaten her, you made her a target. Roman rolled his eyes. No one cares about her. I felt my jaw tighten. I care, and the law cares. I told my clerk, run his name, full check, any flags, now. My clerk typed fast. The keyboard sounded loud in the silence. 10 seconds later, her eyes widened. She slid a sheet toward me like it was hot, a federal contact notice. HUD OIG case ID 26 of 197, a name, Special Agent Marissa Grant. It wasn't a warrant in my file, but it was a clear request. If he appears, contact. I looked up at Roman. His face lost color. I said, Mr. Vale, are you aware of a federal investigation involving Whitlock Properties, forced vacancies, and illegal rent hikes tied to falsified renovation permits? Attorney Pike's face drained. He took a half step back like he wanted to disappear. Roman blinked. No. Pike stood quickly. Your Honor, relevance. This is a civil eviction. I looked at him. Counsel, sit. When I see intimidation and retaliation in front of me, I don't pretend it's just numbers. Hold on now, because the next part is what everyone remembers. I made one call, and it changed her life and ruined his. I picked up the phone on my bench. The room went so quiet I could hear the radiator ticking. I said, "Get me Special Agent Marissa Grant, HUD Office of Inspector General, now." My clerk dialed. Ring, ring. A woman answered. "Special Agent Grant." I said, "Agent Grant, this is Judge in Providence Municipal Court. I have Roman Vale in front of me, leasing manager for Whitlock Properties, docket EV26-0203-118. Evidence came in today of midnight postings, heat shutoff delays, and social media posts mocking an eviction and the court." There was a pause. Then her voice turned sharp. "Judge, keep him there. Do not let him leave." I said, "Understood." Agent Grant continued, "We've been trying to locate him. He's a key coordinator. We have a forced vacancy list. We have tenant harassment patterns. We have shell payments. We have pressure tactics. And we need that video." Elise's eyes widened. Her fear turned into shock. I asked, "Criminal exposure?" Agent Grant said, "Criminal, conspiracy, wire fraud, retaliation, possible bribery of inspectors. We are en route. 8 minutes." I hung up. Roman stood frozen. He tried to act tough. "This is harassment. I'm calling my father." I said, "Call whoever you want. The law doesn't care who your father is." Roman lifted his chin, desperate. "You don't know who my father is." I said, "Tell me." He said, "Victor Vale, city contracts, big donor, friends with important people." He said it like that should end the case. I nodded. "So you're connected. That explains the confidence." Elise whispered, "That's why they treat us like this." I looked at her. Connections don't cancel consequences. Now here's the part that made this whole room feel like a movie. 2 federal agents walked in before the clock even hit 9:40 a.m. The woman in front held up credentials. Special Agent Marissa Grant, HUD Office of Inspector General, badge 8062. Roman's face turned gray. Agent Grant looked straight at him. "Roman Vale." Roman tried a weak laugh. "This is crazy." Agent Grant said, "You are being detained for questioning in connection with HUD OIG case 261197. You have the right to remain silent." Pike stammered, "Agent, my client—" Agent Grant cut him off. "Counsel, step aside." Roman's hands shook. He tried to adjust his Gucci blazer like clothes could save him. He whispered, "This isn't fair." Elise stared at him. Her voice was quiet but strong. "Fair as you not taping notices to my door at 2:23 a.m. Roman snapped, "You're still broke." Elise didn't flinch this time. "And you're still empty," the gallery murmured. "Now listen, because this is where justice becomes more than punishment. If you're curious what I did after the agents took him out, stay with me, because the next call I made wasn't to destroy someone. It was to build someone back up. After Roman was removed, I turned back to the eviction. Attorney Pike sat like a man who suddenly remembered gravity. I said, "Counsel, I will not issue a writ today. This matter is continued. No lockout, no removal, no retaliation. If Whitlock Properties contacts this tenant outside legal channels, you will be back here, and I will consider sanctions." Pike swallowed. "Understood, Your Honor." Elise looked at me like she couldn't breathe. "So, I can go home?" I nodded. "Yes, you can go home." Her shoulders dropped. A small sound came out of her, like her lungs finally worked again. But I wasn't done. Because stopping an eviction doesn't fix groceries. It doesn't fix asthma medicine. It doesn't fix grief. I asked Elise, "Do you have a lawyer?" She shook her head. "No, sir." I said, "You will." I called legal aid on the record. I asked for attorney Simone Park, housing unit. She answered on the second ring. "Simone Park," she said. I said, "Simone, I'm on the bench. Widow teacher, Elise Navarro. Eviction tied to alleged harassment and a federal housing investigation. She needs representation today." Simone said, "Judge, send her to me. I'll take it." I hung up. Elise looked stunned. "I can't afford a lawyer," I said. "You can't afford not to have one." Then I made the call that truly changed her life in a way money can't measure. I called her school. I asked, "Who is your principal?" "Thomas Kendrick," she said. "Anthony Souza Elementary." I called the school office. The secretary sounded confused when she heard who I was. Then the line clicked. Principal Kendrick came on, breathless. "Judge, this is Kendrick," I said. "Mr. Kendrick, I have Ms. Elise Navarro in front of me. She is facing eviction due to her husband's death and delayed benefits. I need to ask you something simple. Is she a good teacher?" He didn't pause. "She is the best we have. Parents request her. She stays late. She buys supplies. She runs reading circles during lunch. Kids who can't read in October are reading by March in her room." I closed my eyes for a second. I felt that old respect in my chest. The respect I feel for people who do hard work for small pay. I asked, "Does your school have any hardship support? PTA emergency funds? Community partners?" Kendrick said, "We do. PTA Emergency Fund. Also a local veterans group that helps families. If she needs help, we can move today." I said, "Move today." He said, "Yes, Judge." I hung up. Elise's hands trembled again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was relief so strong it felt like shaking. She whispered, "I don't like asking for help." I said, "You're not asking. You've been giving for 16 years. I told her, "You go to legal aid after court. You bring your VA case number and rental assistance number. You do not face this alone." She nodded, wiping tears. "Yes, sir." As she turned to leave, she stopped. "Your Honor, can I say something?" I nodded. She faced the room. "I don't hate anyone," she said. "I just want my son to feel safe. My husband used to say, 'We don't beg, we serve.' That's what I'm trying to do." The room went quiet in a different way, like everyone remembered what matters. She left holding her tote bag like it weighed less. 2 weeks later, Roman came back, but not as a proud manager. He came back as a scared man. The Lamborghini wasn't outside anymore. He wore a plain shirt, no Rolex, no smile, and behind him stood his father, Victor Vale, 64, silver hair, perfect suit, the kind of man used to being obeyed. Victor's lawyer spoke. "Your Honor, we are here on a related municipal compliance matter and conditions requested in connection with cooperation." Special Agent Grant was there too. She stood and said, "Judge, we can confirm Mr. Vale has agreed to cooperate. We also request strict conditions to prevent retaliation and to ensure accountability." I looked at Roman. "Stand up." He stood. His knees looked weak. I said, "Do you remember what you said to me? About buses and winners?" Roman stared at the table. "Yes." I said, "Do you remember the widow you mocked?" He swallowed. "Yes." Victor Vale stepped forward, voice heavy. "Your Honor, my son made mistakes." I looked at him. "Mistakes are accidents. Patterns are choices." Victor's jaw clenched. "We contribute a lot to this city." I nodded. "Then contribute decency." "Now I'm going to tell you something straight. Court is not supposed to be revenge, but it is supposed to teach, and some lessons need time. So here is what I ordered. I said, 'Mr. Vale, you will have no contact with Elise Navarro or her child, directly or indirectly. Any violation, you will be remanded.'" Roman nodded fast. "Yes," I said, "you will complete 300 hours of community service, not behind a desk, not for cameras, not for your followers." His eyes widened. 300? I said, 300. I continued, "You will serve those hours at the Providence Veterans Housing Center, assisting families facing eviction. You will help with intake paperwork. You will carry boxes. You will set up cots. You will clean bathrooms. You will do it quietly." Victor's lawyer started, "Your Honor?" I raised my hand. "I'm not finished." I said, "You will pay $5,215 into a court-supervised tenant emergency fund for the Cranston Avenue building. Priority for families with children and veterans. Due in 7 days." Roman's mouth fell open. "That's the exact," I said, "yes, the exact number you tried to squeeze out of a widow with late fees and after-hours processing. Now you can feel what it's like to have a number sit on your chest." Victor Vale leaned forward, angry now. "This is excessive." I looked at him. "Your son's cruelty was excessive." Then I added the final part, and Roman looked like he might faint. I said, "You will remove every social media post that references evictions, tenants, or court matters, and you will post a public apology. No music, no jokes, no Lamborghini, no champagne, just words. Roman whispered, "People will roast me." I said, "Good, you roasted a widow. Now you can stand in the heat." Agent Grant nodded slightly, like she approved. If you're still listening right now, you're part of something special. You're a person who cares about fairness when it isn't trendy. Stay with us, share this story, and let's remind the world that dignity still matters. After that day, I followed Elise's case quietly, the way judges do when we care but must stay proper. Legal aid negotiated a stipulation. Rental assistance came through. The VA survivor benefits finally arrived. The eviction was dismissed. The landlord was warned. Inspections were ordered. The building got watched. A month later, Elise returned to my courtroom, not as a defendant, but as a visitor. She asked permission to speak for 1 minute. She stood near the bench, calm now. "Your Honor," she said, "Mateo hasn't had a panic attack in weeks." I felt my throat tighten. "I'm glad." She said, "He sleeps through the night now. He still keeps his inhaler on the table, but he stopped checking the door lock 3 times. That line hurt me, because kids should worry about spelling tests, not padlocks." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a thank you card in crayon. Mateo's handwriting was messy and brave. It said, "Thank you for letting us keep our home." I sat there after she left and stared at that card, because this is the truth. A courtroom can be a cold place. It can make you feel like you are nothing but a case number. EV 260203-1118, like your life is a stack of fees and dates. But people are not numbers. A widow is not non-payment. A child is not a dependent. A veteran is not a story. And a landlord is not a king. Justice is not about who has the nicest watch. It is not about whose father knows people. It is not about who parks a Lamborghini outside and thinks the world will bow. Justice is about seeing the person in front of you and refusing to let cruelty become normal.